Jerusalem was restless. The city breathed tension. Roman banners fluttered in the distance. Soldiers patrolled the streets. The temple magnificent, immovable, dazzling in white stone and gold, stood as the heart of Israel's faith and identity. And Jesus was leaving it. The disciples followed him down the steps, their eyes lingering on the stones, the walls, the sheer grandeur of the structure. To them, the temple was eternal, unshakable, a monument to God's presence among his people. One of them finally spoke. "Teacher, look at the stones. Look at the buildings." Jesus stopped. He turned, and with a calm that did not match the weight of his words, he said, "Do you see all these things? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." The disciples fell silent. That sentence cracked their world. The Messiah was supposed to restore Israel, not predict its destruction. The temple was supposed to stand forever. Yet Jesus spoke as though it were already dust. Later that day, as the sun lowered itself over Jerusalem, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. From there, the temple could still be seen glowing, radiant, alive. The disciples gathered close. Quietly, urgently, they asked him 3 questions that would echo through history. When will these things happen? What will be the sign of your coming? And what will be the sign of the end of the age? Jesus answered them, not with dates, not with charts, but with a story of sorrow, deception, endurance, and hope. This is the tribulation according to Jesus. Jesus did not begin with wars. He did not begin with famine. He did not begin with judgment. He began with deception. See that no one leads you astray. That was his first warning. Not be afraid, not run, but be careful who you listen to. Jesus looked at his disciples, men who would one day preach, heal, suffer, and die for his name. And he told them something unsettling. Many would come using his name. I am the Christ. I speak for God. I have the truth. And many would believe them. False messiahs, false prophets, false saviors. Jesus was revealing something crucial. The greatest danger of the tribulation would not be violence, but lies. Deception would wear religious clothing. It would sound convincing. It would perform signs. It would quote scripture. And if possible, Jesus said, it would deceive even the elect. The tribulation would not begin with a scream. It would begin with confusion. Then Jesus spoke of the world itself beginning to groan. Wars would rise. Rumors of wars would spread faster than the wars themselves. Nations would turn against nations. Kingdoms against kingdoms. Earthquakes would shake cities. Famines would empty homes. Pestilences would sweep through populations. But Jesus was careful. See that you are not alarmed. These things must take place, but the end is not yet. These were birth, pains, not death throes, but contractions. Painful, increasing, unavoidable. And just as labor intensifies before life emerges, the world would convulse as it moved towards something inevitable. Jesus wanted his followers to understand, suffering alone does not mean the end has arrived. Fear would rise, but fear must not rule. Then the story turned personal. Jesus did not speak about them. He spoke about you. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. This was no abstract prophecy. This was a warning. Following Jesus would cost relationships, it would fracture communities, it would place believers under suspicion and hostility. Some would fall away. Betrayal would come not from strangers, but from family, friends, and fellow believers. Love would grow cold, and yet Jesus did not promise escape. He promised endurance. The one who endures to the end will be saved. Not the strongest, not the loudest, but the faithful. Then Jesus spoke words that froze the moment. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, this was the turning point. A line crossed. Something unholy standing where holiness belonged. A desecration so severe that Jesus did not pause to explain it fully, because Daniel already had dot, and Jesus added urgency. And let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. No hesitation, dot, no gathering of belongings, dot, no looking back, dot, this was not symbolic, dot, this was survival. Pregnant women would suffer greatly. Winter would make escape harder. The Sabbath would complicate movement. Jesus spoke with grief. This was not a spectacle. This was a tragedy. Then Jesus named it. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. This was not just suffering. This was unprecedented suffering. Human cruelty unleashed. Lawlessness normalized. Mercy disappearing, dot, so severe that Jesus said, if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. The world would not survive it on its own, dot. God himself would intervene, not to destroy everyone, but to preserve the elect. God himself would intervene, not to destroy everyone, but to preserve the elect. Judgment would come, but mercy would still speak, dot. As the darkness deepened, deception intensified. Here is the Christ. There he is. Jesus warned, do not go, dot, do not believe it, because his return would not be hidden, dot, t, would not be secret, dot, it would not happen in back rooms or wilderness retreats. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man, dot, double quotes, instant, dot, visible, dot, unmistakable, dot. No one would need to announce it. Then the universe itself would respond. The sun darkened, the moon dimmed, the stars shaken, dot, creation, which had groaned under sin, would tremble under glory. And then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. Every eye would see him. Those who rejected him would mourn, not because they were surprised, but because they were wrong. Jesus would come on the clouds, dot, with power, with glory, dot, with authority, dot, angels would gather the elect from the ends of the earth, dot, no believer forgotten, dot, no suffering unseen, no endurance wasted. The story would not end in chaos, dot, it would end in revelation. Jesus ended the discourse the way he began it, not with fear, but with instruction. Stay awake, dot, be ready, remain faithful. The exact day is hidden, but the outcome is certain. Jesus did not teach the tribulation to satisfy curiosity. He taught it to prepare hearts, dot, so his followers would not panic, dot, so they would not be deceived, dot, so they would endure. The tribulation is not the victory of evil, dot, it is the final expo they would endure, sure of it. And beyond it stands a king returning. After Jesus spoke of the abomination and the flight, the disciples did not interrupt him. They were silent. This was not what they expected when they asked about the future. They had imagined thrones, restoration, triumph. They had imagined Rome falling and Israel rising. Instead, Jesus spoke of running, dot, of suffering, of days so dark they would need to be shortened by God himself. The wind moved through the olive trees. The city lights flickered below. Somewhere in the distance, temple guards changed shifts, unaware that the very building they protected would one day be surrounded, desecrated, and destroyed. Jesus let the silence linger, because some truths need space. Jesus then spoke of lawlessness, and because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. This was not just crime. This was moral collapse. Right would be called wrong. Wrong would be celebrated. Faithfulness would be mocked. Conviction would be labeled hate. In such a world, love would become conditional. People would protect themselves by hardening their hearts. But Jesus warned his followers, do not let the world's coldness freeze your soul. Endurance would not only mean surviving persecution, it would mean preserving love in a loveless age. That would be the true test. Then, unexpectedly, Jesus spoke hope into the darkness. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come. Even as deception spread, even as tribulation intensified, even as hatred grew, the gospel would advance, not halted by fear, not silenced by persecution, not extinguished by death. The message of the kingdom would reach every people, every language, every nation. The tribulation would not stop God's mission, it would accelerate it. Jesus returned again to the urgency of flight. He spoke of rooftops where people rested in the evening air. Do not go down. He said he spoke of fields where workers labored under the sun. Do not return. He warned. This was vivid, practical, urgent. Jesus was not speaking in riddles. When the sign appeared, delay would be deadly. This was not about heroism. It was about obedience. Then Jesus spoke words heavy with sorrow. Alas for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days. This was not prophecy spoken coldly. This was grief spoken aloud. Vulnerable would suffer the most. The strong could run. The weak would struggle. Jesus acknowledged the cost. Jesus acknowledged the cost. And he taught his disciples to pray. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. Even in judgment, prayer mattered. Even in chaos, God listened. The Great Tribulation would push humanity to the brink. Systems would fail. Systems would fail. Violence would escalate. And then Jesus said something astonishing. For the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. God would not allow evil unlimited time. There would be a limit, a boundary, a divine restraint. History would not spiral endlessly. God would intervene. As the end approached, deception would reach its peak. False Christs would perform signs. False prophets would amaze crowds. Miracles would be used to manipulate rather than heal. And Jesus warned again, do not follow them. If someone says, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. If someone says, he is in the wilderness, do not go, because when Jesus returns, no one will need directions. Then Jesus described the moment history has been moving toward, after the tribulation. Not before it. After it. The sun darkened, the moon dimmed, the stars shaken. Creation itself, responding to the presence of its creator. And then the sign. Not explained. Not detailed. Just revealed. And everyone will know what it means. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. Why mourn? Because truth has arrived. Because denial ends. Because every excuse collapses. And yet, this is also the moment of victory. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Not as a servant, not as a sacrifice, but as King. Angels will be sent. Not for judgment, but for gathering. From east and west. From north and south. From north and south. From earth and thou. Heaven. The faithful living and dead are gathered. Every tear accounted for. Every prayer remembered. Every endurance rewarded. Jesus then softened his voice. He spoke of a fig tree. When its leaves appear, summer is near. So when these signs appear, know the end is near. Not to calculate dates, but to recognize seasons. Jesus said, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Words debated for centuries. Words debated for centuries. Jesus anchored prophecy in reality, not fantasy. He ended with certainty. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Empires fall, temples crumble, but his words remain. Jesus closed the door on speculation. No angels know. No humans know. Only the Father. Anyone claiming certainty contradicts Christ himself. Life will look normal. Eating, drinking, until suddenly it isn't. Judgment does not always announce itself. Jesus ended where he began. Colon, watch. Be ready. Be faithful. The servant who endures wins. Jesus told this story so his people would not panic. So they would not be deceived. So they would endure. The tribulation is not the end of hope. It is the unveiling of truth. And beyond it stands a returning King.